So it's good to maybe try and get Purview connected and sort of do a quick scan across some of the areas. And you pick those sort of areas by what is the biggest business value you want to take going forward for that.
Okay, so, but what if you're working for a small business that's only got a few data sets? Is it worth exploring data governance and Purview for that?
Well, I think it's probably going to be fairly costly initially to start looking at that kind of Purview, but you could do a quick scan, attach some things to just to kind of see what there is with that. Look at the people. I was just like looking at Richard because he was asking me the questions. I look that way. Yes, no, so yeah, so it's kind of like I suppose you have to think on a smaller scale, and that is just like investigating that sort of like data and just seeing what you've kind of got there, and but not sort of going full steam ahead because you can't, because it's small, you don't have that capability to sort of like, I suppose, grow at such kind of speed and things like that. So it's getting that right and thinking about like, if you're doing any sort of like new pieces of work that you're going in, putting in new software products, actually then delving in and saying, well, we've got data that's coming into this software product. Perhaps we should start recording it. Perhaps we could kind of see who might be the people that are going to be working on this data, looking at like the stewards, and even kind of see like if we've purchased it, where we would need to go back, or thinking about like that data sort of acquisition pipeline and where you might want to push that into some sort of ETL sort of pipelines and things. So yeah, it's quite, I would say start small, but put yourself in a position that you can kind of grow in the future.
So if you're a small business and you've done your investigations and you might want to invest some more time in Purview, what are the key benefits that you can take back to your stakeholders?
Oh yeah, that's the main thing, isn't it? I mean, the first thing you kind of start thinking about is, well, people, when you hear that one word, don't you, governance, people think really costly, kind of start thinking about, oh, well, we need to put all our GDPR data and things like that. So I kind of start thinking about, well, the first thing you look at is like trying to mitigate that kind of risk. And obviously the security side of things is sort of that sort of point, isn't it? But then you sort of would think, well, we need to sort of like grow a little bit further and then say, well, are we actually going to save any money by putting in that data governance? Because it all comes down to what business value and things, isn't it? And how much the business is going to sort of like grow into that sort of capability. So then you start sort of thinking, well, if you kind of like draw into that sort of data sort cataloging and then seeing, well, oh, well, we can find out what data we've got like really, really quickly and things. That's sort of like quite good, isn't it? And then so you're starting to save yourself time and money because it's so quick to sort of do that. But then the other big, huge thing, which is obviously like part of like that data governance side of things, is the fact that why are we doing it? It's to get really great data quality. And then once you've got that great data quality, you can then sort of feed that into sort of AI systems. You can help businesses pivot at great speed, as we've kind of seen businesses that have used that over this sort of like core sort of period during sort of COVID and things like that. Those that have got that quality have been able to pivot. So it has its place, and it's sort of something that you want to sort of like build on, really.
So staying with that a little bit, but you know, throwing another question out, and Erwin, maybe you could talk to us about how you would kind of reduce the cost of running Purview in your business.
So yeah, that's a good question, because if you look to the cost, because that's what a lot of people were saying in the beginning, Purview is really expensive. But the great thing of Purview is it's a platform as a service. So you can start with it, you can start playing around, you can explore Purview, and after 1 month you can, for example, throw it away. If you compare to other products, to other data governance products, Purview is, looking to the price, really good. The only thing is, make sure if you do the pricing, like for example, I think if you have not that much data, so we're talking about 2 gigabytes of metadata, you will be about 25 euros, 30 euros. Okay, I don't know how to translate it to pounds, but probably you can do it yourself. But about 30 euros a day. So that will be around 800, 900 euros a month, and it depends on how much you scan. So if you scan your data twice a day or 3 times a day, yeah, that will cost you money. But scanning data means that I have to scan the data and then I don't have to scan it again and again and again. Once it's scanned, it's in my catalog and I can start exploring the data over there or the classifications of the data over there. And the great thing in Purview is as well, once you have done your first scan, so they call it like a full scan, the scans afterwards will be incremental. So it will only check for new objects which need to be added. So what I did in my environment is, for example, I've just added a weekly scan. Every Monday morning it will scan my data so I can discover all the new data assets which are arrived in my data estate. So that's what I did. So I think if you start with Purview, it will cost you around 800, 900 euros a month.
That's not. It's not a massive amount just to get started on your governance journey.
Yeah, and the great thing, of course, is you don't have a license. So you don't have to buy a license up front from like 30,000 euros or something. And then for a small business, you have to pay that license up front and then like, yeah, but this is not the product we want to have. And if this is not a product you don't want to have, you can just delete it in Azure and your costs are deleted as well. Okay, not the costs you've made already, but afterwards.
Cool. Do we have any questions from the floor at this point or online? Anybody? Yeah, chap over there. Hi. What was your question?
So my question is a tech question. Will there any be Purview for analysis services?
Okay. So the question is about technology, and will there be Purview for analysis services?
Now, Purview is really data scanning, and Azure Analysis Services is really a product where you store data in models. So I think we have some questions around metadata in a bit, I think. So we will talk about that, but it's really a difference. So Purview will not store data. It will scan your data, it will store the metadata, and Azure Analysis Services, there you can store the data as well in a model.
Do you mean that?
That was not the intention of the question.
Okay.
So the idea was, could Purview scan analysis services?
Oh, can Purview scan Azure Analysis Services? Sorry.
Yes.
No, not yet. I don't know. It can scan. I think we can do with. I think we will have another answer. I think we can do some with custom scanning. Because it's still an XML endpoint, and we can scan the XML endpoint in Power BI. Yeah. So probably with a custom lineage or custom classification, we can do it. But I haven't tried that. Maybe Wolfgang did.
What I would recommend, Gaurav from the Purview team is here. You can ask him this question. It's a roadmap question. So as of today, Power BI datasets are able to be scanned by Purview, and it's analysis services tabular. Let's see, but Gaurav knows about the roadmap. As of today, no.
Thank you. So moving on from just what the business and how that's going to affect the business in terms of money, let's move on to how the business is going to be affected in terms of security. So if you've got your own customer sensitive data, how can if I have your own customer sensitive data, can those be added into Purview as well if it's sensitive data, Wolfgang?
What you can do, it's like a twofold answer for that one. You can use those sensitivity labels from O365. They can now be included into, or Purview can scan those. So you have those like highly confidential and so on. And the other way is you can use the REST API, the Apache Atlas REST API, which is an open API. And there are, to be honest, no real borders for that one. So you can create your own types, you can create your own classification types, you can add your own properties to those entities, and you can add the information you want to your Purview data asset. So it's also possible to combine, like Purview scans a table in an Azure SQL database, and you add your own properties to that one, like your own sensitivity level, whatever. So 2 options, or more than 2 options if you use the Apache Atlas API.
Great. So one common pattern that people use is dynamic data masking and masking stuff. Erwin, is there anything we can do with data masking in Purview?
So what I already said before, data masking, Purview will scan the masked data. So that's the opposite way. But if you want to know how you can see if fields are masked or not, what you can do, I think Wolfgang already mentioned it with the REST API, which you can use. Microsoft has released a new tool on GitHub, Presidio. With Presidio, you can anonymize, mask, and analyze all your data. And then with that custom API, you can tell Purview, listen, this field had been masked or has not been masked, so that you can directly see which kind of fields in your data are P2 data or sensitive data or GDPR data, that you directly can classify these assets with, for example, Presidio. There are more use cases to be found on the internet to get that working. So with a couple of tools from Microsoft so that we have a native solution, so no third-party appliances in there, we can do that.
Great. Any questions from the floor or from online at this point? Security? Yeah, we've got a couple.
Yep. Let's say you've got your own, a load of database tables, and you've got your own sort of classification within a database table. Could that, say, be imported into Purview?
To repeat that question, you have your own like metadata, and you have your own like data classification for a system that is not scanned in Purview or by Purview.
No, it is scanned, but you want to add your own. You've already done the metadata for it. You've got that in a database table.
Okay, so you've already done the classification and metadata curation in your own database table, and you want to add it into Purview. It's possible. Yeah, it's again the REST API.
And following on from that, can you export data out of Purview?
The REST API, it's like import or export, so you can work with the data. You can even delete some data assets, relationship, whatever you want, if you have the permissions.
There was another question from the gentleman in the middle.
So are there any recommended best practices? Like in my company, we do sort of put the ownership on the data that we have in our data lake. Actually, also what we have in analysis services, we also have put an ownership on that. But are there any best practices around how we do the things and make sure that Purview is updated with the correct information and how we make sure that the information in Purview is also updated with the correct information?
Yeah, so repeat the question. If I'm correct, you want to know if you we have analysis service, we have a data lake, we have set permissions on these data assets, and how can we assure that these permissions are there, and how can we maintain these permissions? Is that correct?
It's more about the ownership of data.
Yeah, the ownership of data. So the ownership of data. What a great thing! I think Wolfgang showed it this morning in the keynote as well. What we can do on every data set, we can define an expert owner, and we can or an expert, and we can define an owner on that data set. So once you are going to look at that data, that you directly can see, someone else can directly see, okay, if I want to have a question on this data set, I have to go to Wolfgang, and for that data set, I have to go to you, and for the other data set to there. So there is an option, and you can directly email from Purview to that person too as well.
And that's a really great tool, isn't it, to be able to do that, because that's what we find. You collect all these like data silos and no one knows where anything is, do they? So it's a good sort of tool to help with that.
And what you can do with that like owner or expert relationship, you can assign it at different levels. So you can assign it at a data asset like a table, or you assign it at a schema or a database. So it's like you can assign it at different levels. And that really makes it easy. If you use the data catalog, you've got that list of assets that are returned, and there's the filter section for those owners and whatever. So it's the other way around. You list all your customer entities somewhere, and you know I'm the responsible person. You can filter to that one, and maybe there's one entity left in the filter.
Can I follow up with that?
Sure.
So say, Wolfgang, we are in the same company, you get a better job, and you are responsible for
what you can do, there's an option that I think with the bulk insert, you can change the owners as well. So I can directly search for all the assets where Wolfgang was responsible for, or who was the expert or the owner from, and I have to change it to my name. I can directly search with the filter to Wolfgang his assets, check with my boss, you are my boss, and we check if I am responsible for that, and we can directly do a bulk update on these assets to change it from Wolfgang to Erwin. Yeah, cool.
Or, again, REST API. That's an option too. So.
And then you can do the replacement.
There's always multiple ways to skin a cat, isn't there?
We are consultant, it depends.
It depends. Oh, yes, I should have said that, shouldn't I?
Any other questions? It's quite dark over there.
Don't think so.
Nope.
Okay, we'll go back to the online questions that we got submitted. Access control across data sets, because we're still talking. I'm still in a security guy because I'm a DBA. So access control about data sets. I think we briefly touched on it earlier on. Can we talk a bit more about that?
Yes, definitely. I think it was introduced like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, maybe 2 months ago. Yeah. We have now policies within our Purview environment. And what does it mean? Because that's really important to know. What I can do from the Purview side, I can define read access on different folders within my data lake. So I can say this group of people has only read access on that folder in the data lake, or that person has read-write access to that folder, or even inherited, so that I do it on the raw container, and every flow behind is only read access, and I have a sandbox container, and I can say read-write. That's for the data lake part. For the SQL part, we can do the same thing, that I can define read access to a group of people or a person on that database with that policy part. It's really working awesome. Be careful, it's in preview, and it's only available, I think, in 2 regions yet. So not all the regions in Europe. I think it is in France and somewhere else in the UK, I think. So there are only 2 regions where this option is available, but it will not take long anymore.
Cool. We have a late-breaking question.
Sorry. I have a question.
Oh, it's got one over there. Sorry.
So the question is, will it apply Azure RBAC or ACL on the data lake? No. Yeah, somewhere, but if you look to the data lake folders, you don't see anything. So it's going to one of the registered applications, and I haven't found it yet where it has been set, because that was easier for me. But the great thing is that you have an overview in your Purview environment, which kind of policies you have applied. And if you use ACL or RBAC, it's really a nightmare if you have a lot of folders defined. But now I can say, okay, I have a group of data scientists or a group of data engineers, and they have read access on that folder, or they have on the sandbox for the read and write access, and directly in a simple overview. And what is coming in as well, that we will support self-service policies. That's released, I think, today.
And there was a session about that one. So imagine you are searching the data catalog, and there's a customers table. And I've got no access to that one. And there's a short or small button over there, which you can trigger a request access like workflow. And there is some sort of approval in the background running. And if the sources do support, like Purview and the source can talk together, it's like those, if it's approved, the permission is granted automatically. And the other ones, it's like the owner of the data gets an email.
I thought that was quite good, wasn't it? All that data sharing stuff, so that you can automatically then just set it all up, and then you don't need to spend all that time managing it. Because I think it could be quite a management overhead if people keep wanting to request access to that data shares, isn't it?
Yeah.
So while we're talking about recent announcements, there's the data lineage for stored procedures. Does that work for on-premise solutions as well?
Not today. It's like Azure SQL, stored procedures, and Gaurav mentioned it in its session. They are extending it to other products, but as of today, it's Azure SQL.
Do you want to talk any more about that announcement?
We all want stored procedures.
It's like
On-prem.
not only data factory, not only integration service.
Yes.
There's a little bit more going on in our data warehousing, whatever databases, and it was released Tuesday, Monday.
Tuesday evening.
Yeah, Tuesday evening.
I was really in the call with the product group, and he said, "Okay, this has been released 50 minutes ago or something like that." It was pretty awesome. And then I warned them, "Just you."
And it's not only the static structure lineage extraction. It's doing dynamic, reading all those extended events, what is happening in the database, and you can have a look at all those execution runs of a stored procedure. You get the number of rows, the execution duration, and data lineage, which is very right.
It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Again,
We've been waiting for it for so long, haven't we? And then it's suddenly like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
so we've got data lineage for stored procs on premises soon, maybe.
Someday.
Someday.
Yeah.
Would that go for would that go for integration services packages as well? Is that another roadmap question?
I've seen that question on the roadmap, integration services, but I think
I haven't tried it, but I think it's in the documentation that integration
should
services data flows, but really, really simple data flows should work. And a really, really simple data flow, it's a source and a destination.
so. If you execute a pipeline within your data factory or in your Synapse environment, and then you execute that SSDS package, that you will see. But what is happening within that SSDS package, you won't see that one. But you will see the lineage, that what happened from A to B to C.
So you'll see the flow, not the internals of that, because it's a single package. Okay, any questions from the room? Anything online? No? Okay, so if you're building a completely new data warehouse, for example, with reports and stuff, would you start with Purview straight away, or would you try and put it in later on and just know that it's something that's coming along?
Consultant.
Consultant, it depends.
Yeah.
Now, I think focus. Don't do two things at the same time. First, create your data warehouse, I think, Wolfgang.
I would go that way. Like if you implement Purview and afterwards start to implement your data warehouse, well, yeah. I would do it the other way around. Maybe like after a first sprint, a first part of the project, you just push the first version into Purview. But I would focus on development first.
Yeah, and definitely, because if you build your data warehouse, you're still in development, and you start scanning your development environment. Yes, we know that we all make errors in development. And once Purview has scanned, the data is in there. It will not be get rid. So if I want to get rid of that data asset, which is maybe not correct, I have to delete it, because it was there once. So it was there. So it has been scanned. So then you have to delete that asset as well. So what Wolfgang is saying: first, implement your data warehouse, get your first loads to production, and start scanning your production workloads.
So that plays into dealing with schema drift. If you do it in development, then you would have possibly multiple changes, and you've got a bigger overhead on keeping the catalogs up to date. Is that right?
Yeah, if you look like schema drifting, that's well, I think that was one of the questions this morning as well with the session with Purview about data quality. The great thing is, once it is scanned, so if there are columns added to a table, it will automatically be discovered. So that's the incremental loading, what I just mentioned as well. The columns will be added, but if you have a schema drift and there are columns deleted, these columns will not be deleted, because they were there. So there is an asset somewhere in our data lake or somewhere in our SQL environment which is there, so it should be there.
I often compare it to the Purview doesn't want to forget something. So it's adding new information, but not auto-deleting those like existing columns that were there like last week. So it's like the metadata brain of your data landscape.
But but it needs that for the lineage anyway, because you might want to go back, and even if thinking about cybersecurity attacks and things like that, if someone's deleted stuff, how could you ever know what happened in the past? So,
Maybe there was a pipeline that used that column. Yep.
So I see a question over there. So the question is, to repeat, I have a DTAP environment, so development, test, and acceptance and production environment. Which environment will I scan? It's all cost money, but that's the same thing if people ask me, should I monitor my development environment or test environment? Yes, you should, because I still can be attacked on my data lake in development or test. So it's a really difficult question. If I only scan my my production environment, I will never see what will happen in my company on development. Maybe there are people dumping data sets into our development data lake with really sensitive data.
That's more like the data scientists, isn't it, that are always doing that we have to keep.
So you want to see that data as well.
Heard that.
The great thing in Purview is that you can say, you can create hierarchies. So you can create collections. And for example, what I will advise in your situation is create a collection for your development, test, acceptance, and production. So you can define your own scans for development and your own scans for production. So maybe you do only the scans for development once a month, and production maybe every week, or vice versa. But then you can directly see, okay, I can give people access to data on their development environment, because if we go back to that security part with the policies, then you definitely want to have your data lake from development and test as well in Purview, because you want to have these access rights maintained there as well. Does that answer your question? Cool.
I just want to add, do data better, and it doesn't matter if it's in dev or prod. And especially the example with the PII data, that is interesting what you find in those development environments.
A little bit too much.
All the time.
Yep. So
however much people say they don't do that, it's always sneaks in, doesn't it?
Going back to that super paranoid thing about data, one of the questions that came up online was, is your business data replicated into Purview? Anybody?
No.
No.
No. Short answer. Yeah, there's one part in the overall Purview process where data, the real data, not the metadata, not the structure, the real data is like used, it's during the classification. That is the part where Purview tries to guess some data classification like email address or whatever, but it doesn't load the data into the system. It just does the data profiling, assigns some classification, and then the classification and the relationship to that asset is stored in Purview. So no replication of data. It's no another data warehouse, whatever data copy.
And that's why we have that integration with Data Factory and Synapse, that we can directly look to a data asset or one of the assets. We can make a connection between Data Factory or Synapse with Purview, and then you can directly see, okay, I have this asset, for example, customer, and I want to start querying that data set, and you can directly do that from Synapse. So the viewing the data is from the Synapse part, the metadata is from the Purview part.
Cool. Any more questions from the room? Wink. No, anything online?
I've got a question.
No.
Who? Yeah.
You're not allowed.
Okay.
Go on. Go ahead.
No. Who has already tried Purview in the audience? 3.
And so, and what was your experience, the first one? It was nice. That was the experience.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay.
How long did you try it? Okay, you tried it limited, so we have to ask the questions to him. Okay.
So did
What
it
was
take
your
a long time
experience
to
then?
do scans?
It was very nice.
What was the scanning length? Was it short, longer? Did you have any problems with that?
No problems with the scan length? It was easy to set up. Yeah, sorry, I have to repeat the answers as well, because otherwise our online attendees cannot
I
follow
know.
it.
No, that's good, because we've had some customers that have actually like deployed the Purview, and in some cases it's taken quite a while to do that first scan. But it really depends on sort of the volume of data that you're trying to like push in all in one go. So interesting to see.
You use it as well?
Yeah, I did. I also used the first version of Data Catalog, and that was not so good as the new.
So you use the first data catalog version 1 or version 2?
Just refresh it. So you got this question. Can you see this question?
Yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah. I can do that.
Okay. And this one. I think it's the same guy.
I'll get on to that.
So so this trying to quick to get quick resume.
I've
It was
heard.
easy to set up.
Yeah.
It was easy to scan my data, and it's my little project right now, and it's going to be my baby, and I'm going to handle it. It's going to be landed in our organization. Is that why a little bit your answer?
Yeah, it will come out.
It will come out. Okay.
Cool.
Experience is pricey. Yeah, but you're Dutch. So what the answer was is, yes, we did set it up, but it has to be embedded in the organization. And I think that's really one of the most problems in a lot of organizations. If nobody is supporting or helping with data governance, don't start. Because data governance is really a separate job. And that's
then
my
have you-
opinion. So
Yeah, but then have you found like that there's different parts of the organisation? You might have one small part that's dealing with that data governance side, and then you've got all the rest of the business that's not doing any data governance at all. And then it's like, oh, well, a little piece over here decides they want to do some data governance, but you've got this little piece. So it's a really big business problem, isn't it, to try and get everyone to be joined up and get a really great data culture growing?
And what we are, yes, like that. And what we also are seeing now, in our company, the data and AI team is taking care of Azure Purview. And Azure Purview is more than only data and AI.
Yeah.
You know, it's really bigger, because you also can scan Word documents, PDF documents. There's a lot of data living in your area. So, and there are a lot of blob stores used by a lot of teams in the company. And that's why data governance needs to be of top of mind of every department.
Data is not just databases and a data lake. It's more. It's information in your company. And we have to deal with that. And it's not getting easier. And a tool can help. And I really like that approach of Purview allowing you to create a scan, and you can scan those documents like PDF, whatever, and it's included in your data landscape. So it's not only that SQL Server, Oracle database, that SAP system, it's the information in your company, and you have to look at that. The question was, does it also scan SharePoint? Not as of today. And I got that question, I think, on Tuesday during my training day.
Yeah, and I haven't seen anything about
No.
that at all.
So going back to that adoption piece, we did have a question that came in from Kazim online. Are there any Purview adoption frameworks or detailed customer case studies that talk about what to expect when you start your data governance journey? Some white papers and some shared experiences that we could tell
There's
people
a
about.
really good sort of white paper that's out, isn't it? I think you mentioned it in your thing on Tuesday as well, which is from Microsoft, which is about data governance and.
That one is about data governance. For
Yeah.
the Purview part,
Yes.
The doc sites are pretty good.
the doc sites are pretty good. There are some how-tos, but what is missing are those architectural pieces and, let's say, best practices approaches. But in the last session, Gaurav mentioned they are working together with the Azure architecture team. So there will be something published. So that I'm really looking forward. As of today, it's like more, not trial and error, but it's like those experience we got during our projects, we are evaluating and continuously improving, but there is no official architectural guideline.
They talked about some blueprints, didn't they? And they've already got like the customer use cases out there. So I think it's all coming. It's such a new product, really, isn't it? So there's a lot to build on. So
going back to that, I know we've kind of segued into data governance a little bit. So how does Purview work with master data management? If you're doing that, is it a good fit? Is it a good marriage? Anybody? Nobody? We can move on.
Somebody.
The answer currently from Microsoft is prophecy. That's also mentioned on the doc side, so that you have an integration with prophecy, but then
they're doing a piece with Tamar as well.
You have two different data governance products, because and only for master data management over here for prophecy, and then Purview over here, and they have an integration. But what I heard yesterday from one of the other product managers is they are working on the integration with prophecy only for master data management, but they are intending to buy another company for master data management. And when it is, I don't know. Because master data management is really, I already said before, a separate job. It is really different to define golden records. So there is no integration yet. Yes, it is on the roadmap, but when it comes, the same as data quality, we don't know.
Yeah, so prophecy is mentioned quite a lot, isn't it? But in one of the sessions earlier this morning, they also talked about Tamar. So that's kind of quite an up-and-coming same kind of thing.
There are more products. So
so we shall see. You can never tell.
And they use something like a REST API?
Do you think?
All
Probably.
use the REST API, yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more questions from the room? Oh,
Online question.
we have an online question. Okay, similar question to the one I asked. Is there any centralized community resources for things like exported custom glossaries, glossary examples and things? So that's about community resources for starting journeys and
I
stuff.
should answer if there was, I should know it. And I think Wolf on the same, because that glossary is really, that should be, my advice is, can you start it?
Yeah, Russell, go for it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we can do anything these days online.
I will do the beta test, so it's no problem from my side. No,
You got an offer of help from Wolfgang. Come on.
Yeah. But what came into my mind now with that one, there is the common data model from Microsoft. And maybe we should have a look at that one if we have some sort of definition in there. But that is just the idea that came up now. But maybe we could use that one as it's a defined data model for business applications. So we should find some definitions in there.
Yeah, it gives you a good starting place, but then obviously every business has got its own individual bits that it needs to add on that. But it'd be good if they actually integrated fully that core sort of base, wouldn't it? So, because then it would save a lot of time for sort of a lot of businesses and things.
Cool. I got a question about data policies. I don't understand this thing. But data policies, are they available outside US regions? Are data policies?
They are available in French Central
Yes.
and one other. And very important to know, currently, already you have to set first the policy enforcement on true. That's an Azure tenant setting. Then you need to create a data lake somewhere, and then you can start using policies. So I have a data lake. I don't want to make a new data lake in another region than the Netherlands or whatever. So for me, I'm just trying and testing and trying to get my use cases done for customers on the French Central data lake to see if this is working. So and then I can copy it over to later on to the West Europe or North Europe or UK data center. And I asked that question: when are these new things coming? Hopefully by the end of the Microsoft year. So that will be around July, but I cannot promise on that one.
And what I experienced when I tried that one out, the setting is not set immediately. So it took some time.
It will
so
take
if you
10 to
try
15
it,
minutes or something. Yeah.
and you want to create or you create that data lake in France afterwards, it's not working directly. So it takes some time. That was my experience.
Same here.
Okay, we have another question from online about capacity units and how Purview objects are organized in capacity units. So how would you go about capacity planning your Purview delivery?
The team made our life easier. In the beginning, it was like you could instantiate it with 4 and 16 capacity units, which was good for Microsoft, but
Yes, expensive.
it was expensive.
Yes.
And now we've got the elastic data map, so it's auto-scale. If we need more resources, there are more requests, well, Purview scales up. And it's running at 1 CU at minimum, so there's no pause of Purview. So it's
That's
like
30 euros a day.
yeah. And if Purview, there are more requests, it scales up, and it scales down if the requests go down. But Purview scales up too and stays at that level if the data map storage exceeds a certain level.
So 1 CU is 2 gigabyte, and 2 is of course 4. So if there's more than 2 gigabyte of metadata in there, it will stay on 2.
Yep.
But some good cost control for Purview, some budgets is very important in the beginning.
I have a question. Have you seen any integration with data modeling tools?
Have you seen any integration with data modeling tools? But do you mean like Looker or Erwin?
We would have, for example, enterprise architect, where you define the schemas.
Where you define it, yeah, but then you had to visit my session at 12 o'clock. There I talked about database templates. No, because you're not doing any, so the question is, can I use enterprise architect in Purview? You are not modeling your data there. You're scanning your data, so the modeling will be taking part within Synapse or other tools.
But there is a connector with Erwin.
Yeah,
I haven't tried that one.
There's a connector, but
Yeah.
that's still, then you have to model it in there, and then you can scan that in for the Linux, I think.
Yeah, sure.
They have Linux
You-
as well in Erwin, but not all enterprise or logical data model tools.
Cool. I think we've got time for one more question off the. There's nothing online. Any more questions in the room, please?
Your last chance.
Yeah, because we're
During
not
that
doing this
session.
again.
You could make it a really good question.
And if not, we are still walking around here today,
Yeah, that's it.
tonight, tomorrow, and you can find us on Twitter.
We can find us all on Twitter.
But
Yeah,
we have
all of
one,
us, yes.
We have one question left for you all, and that's feedback. If it was good, we are happy. If it was bad, please let us know what we did wrong. This was actually the first time we did it with 4 people.
Yes.
So we had fun, I think.
Yeah, it was great. Apart from I was looking in the wrong direction at the beginning, but you know.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
We have to get used to that audience and
Yes.
in-person thing again. So
Yes.
it takes some time.
We're not looking at screens all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your kind attention. We hope you got something from it. These guys are around for the rest of the week. If you've got any questions, please pop up. So look them up on Twitter. The details are on the SQLBits website, or they're just generally all over the place on social media. Ask your questions, and let's do some good work with Purview. Okay,
thank
thank
you
you very much.
Amazing.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you
Yep,
very much.
thank you.
Thank you.